The Baltic Finns are a Finno-Ugric group of peoples of Northeastern Europe whose modern descendants include the Finns proper, Karelians, Veps, Izhorians, Võros, Livonians and Estonians who speak Baltic-Finnic languages and have inhabited the Baltic Sea region for 3,000 years according to one theory, or up to 10,000 years according to another theory. Theories of origin. According to the migration theory that was based primarily on comparative linguistics, the Proto-Finnic peoples migrated from an ancient homeland somewhere in northwestern Siberia or western Russia to the shores of the Baltic Sea around 1000 BC, at which time Finns and Estonians separated. The migration theory has been called into question since 1980, based on genealogy, craniometry and archaeology. Recently, a modified form of the migration theory has gained new support among the younger generation of linguists, who consider that archaeology, genes or craniometric data cannot supply evidence of prehistoric languages. During the last 30 years, scientific research in physical anthropology, craniometric analyses, and the mitochondrial and Y-chromosomal DNA frequencies have reduced the likelihood of the migration theory, a major westward migration as recently as 3,000 years ago. The settlement continuity theory asserts that at least the genetic ancestors of the Finno-Ugric peoples were among the earliest indigenous peoples of Europe. The origin of the people who lived in the Baltic Sea area during the Mesolithic era continues to be debated by scientists. From the middle of the Neolithic era onwards, there is agreement to a certain extent among scholars. It has been suggested that Finno-Ugric tribes arrived in the Baltic region from the east or southeast approximately 4000 to 3000 BC by merging with the original inhabitants, who then adopted the Proto-Finno-Ugric language and the comb ceramic culture of the newcomers. The members of this new Finno-Ugric-speaking ethnic group are regarded as the ancestors of modern Estonians. The Y-chromosomal data has also revealed a common Finno-Ugric ancestry for the males of the neighboring Baltic peoples, speakers of the Indo-European Baltic languages. According to the studies, Baltic males are most closely related to the Finno-Ugric-speaking Volga Finns such as the Mari, rather than to Baltic Finns. The indicator of Finno-Ugric origin has been found to be more frequent in Latvians and Lithuanians than in Estonians. The results suggest that the territories of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania have been settled by Finno-Ugric-speaking tribes since the early Mesolithic period. On the other hand, some linguists do not consider it likely that a Baltic-Finnic language form could have existed at such an early date. According to these views, the Finno-Ugric languages appeared in Finland and Baltic only during the early Bronze Age, if not later. Baltic-Finnic oral poetry. The Baltic Finns share a common cultural heritage, the art of ancient rune singing and the Kalevala meter, estimated to be 2,500 to 3,000 years old. The Veps are the only Baltic Finnish people with no significant corpus of Kalevala meter oral poetry. The poetic tradition has included epic poems, lyric poems and magic chants. The ancient rune singing has inspired the creation of the national epic of Finland, Kalevala, compiled by Elias La Paragraph NNROT, and the music of Arvo Päärvi, the best-known Estonian composer in the classical field. J.R.R. Tolkien has highlighted the importance of Kalevala as a source for his legendarium, including The Lord of the Rings. History of the Baltic Finnic peoples. The Mesolithic period. The region has been populated since the end of the last glacial era, about 10,000 BC. The earliest traces of human settlement are connected with Samizja currency RVI culture and Kunda culture. The early Mesolithic Puli settlement is located by the currency Rnu River. It has been dated to the beginning of the 9th millennium BC. The Kunda culture received its name from the Lamasma currency settlement site in northern Estonia, which dates from earlier than 8500. Bone and stone artifacts similar to those found at Kunda have been discovered elsewhere in Estonia, as well as in Latvia, northern Lithuania and southern Finland. The Neolithic period, around 5300 BCE, pottery and agriculture entered Finland. The earliest representatives belong to the comb ceramic cultures, known for their distinctive decorating patterns. This marks the beginning of the Neolithic period, comb ceramic culture. Until the early 1980s, the arrival of Finnick peoples, the ancestors of the Estonians, Finns, and Livonians on the shores of the Baltic Sea around 3000 BC, was associated with the Combs ceramic culture. However, such a linking of archaeologically defined cultural entities with linguistic ones cannot be proven, and it has been suggested that the increase of settlement finds in the period is more likely to have been associated with an economic boom related to the warming of climate. Some researchers have even argued that a form of Uralic languages may have been spoken in Estonia and Finland since the end of the last glaciation. Bronze Age. The beginning of the Bronze Age in Estonia is dated to approximately 1800 BC, in present-day Finland sometime after 1500 BCE. The coastal regions of Finland were a part of the Nordic Bronze culture, whereas in the inland regions the influences come from the bronze-using cultures of northern Russia. The development of the borders between the Finnick peoples and the Balts was underway. The first fortified settlements, Asva and Radala on the island of Zama and Ira in northern Estonia, began to be built. The development of shipbuilding facilitated the spread of bronze. Changes took place in burial customs, a new type of burial ground spread from Germanic to Estonian areas. Stone cis graves and cremation burials became increasingly common aside small number of boat-shaped stone graves. The Iron Age. The pre-Roman Iron Age began in about 500 BC and lasted until the middle of the 1st century AD. The oldest iron items were imported, although since the 1st century iron was smelted from local marsh and lake ore. Settlement sites were located mostly in places that offered natural protection. Fortresses were built, although used temporarily. The appearance of square Celtic fields surrounded by enclosures in Estonia date from the pre-Roman Iron Age. The majority of stones with man-made indents, which presumably were connected with magic designed to increase crop fertility, date from this period. A new type of grave, quadrangular burial mounds, began to develop. Burial traditions show the clear beginning of social stratification. The Roman Iron Age is roughly dated to between 50 and 450 AD, the era that was affected by the influence of the Roman Empire. In material culture this is reflected by few Roman coins, some jewelry and artifacts. The abundance of iron artifacts in southern Estonia speaks of closer mainland ties with southern areas, while coastal Finland and the islands of western and northern Estonia communicated with their neighbors mainly by sea. By the end of the period, clearly defined tribal dialectical areas Finns, Tivestians, Karelians, northern Estonias, southern Estonias, and western Estonias including the islands, had emerged, the population of each having formed its own understanding of identity. Early Middle Ages, Finnick peoples in chronicles. The word Finn is first mentioned in the form Feni in the 1st century AD by Tacitus, the Roman historian. However, it is possible that he was referring to the people of northern Europe in general, particularly the Lappic or Sami people. After that the name Finni is used by Claudius Ptolemaios and the Byzantine writer Jordanes in his Getica. References to Finnic tribes become much more numerous from the Viking era. It was not until about 1171 that the word Finni was employed to mean the Finns. The term Uresti, the name of the Estonians, occurs first again in Tacitus. However, it might have indicated Baltic peoples. In northern sagas the term started to be used to indicate the Estonians. In a Norwegian text the name Kareli referring to Karelians, and the term Kornuti Finni, interpreted as referring to the Lapps or Sami people, first appear. The Russian primary chronicles opening chapter lists the following peoples living in the share of Japheth among others: Chud, Mia, Maroma, Vez, Mordvin, Chud beyond the portages, Perm, Pashera, Yam, Ugra, Liv. The name Sum, possibly meaning Suomi, is found in Nestor's chronicle. The names of other Finnic tribes are also listed including Veps, Shermis, Mordvin, Permian. The Chuds, as mentioned by the monk Nestor in the earliest Russian chronicles, were the Ists or Esthonians. According to the Russian primary chronicle Chuds bordered on the Varangian Sea. In 1030 Yaroslav I the Wise invaded the country of the Chuds and laid the foundations of Yuriev. They remained until 1061 when, according to chronicles, Yuriev was burned down by the Chuds. According to Old East Slavic chronicles the Chuds were one of the founders of the Rus state. The Northern Chuds were also a mythical people in folklore among Northern Russians and their neighbors. In Komi mythology, the Northern Chuds represent the mythic ancestors of the Komi people. Middle Ages. In the 13th century the East Baltic world was transformed by military conquest. First the Livs and Estonians, then the Finns underwent defeat, baptism, military occupation and sometimes extermination by groups of Germans, Danes and Swedes. See also, Volga Finns, References